International. This is part of my program that has to do with understanding global culture, understanding global language, understanding global leadership. Um, the culture or culture in general is essential part of conflict and conflict resolution. Cultures are like underground rivers that run through our lives and relationships. So giving us messages that shape our perception, attributions, judgments, and ideas of self and others. I do believe that cultures within, we're talking about cultures and also subcultures within that culture is more than language, more than a dress, more than food. And I was reading the other day and noticed that about 3/4 of the world conflicts are of cultural nature. So we want to understand. We want to understand what is it that we are dealing with here? What is it that we are faced with that we should understand in regard to what's going on in America? And I have here an esteemed guest, a man of knowledge, a man of wisdom, a man that I admire and enjoy his sermons because they're more of deep thinking. It gets to the bottom of things. Never talks about surfaces. Once you listen to him, once you hear him, it makes you think. It makes you think deeper. I am not going to keep you waiting. Brother Imam Hatim, I will introduce you, let you actually introduce yourself. Who is Imam Hatim Hamidullah?
Yes, Mona, thank you so much for inviting me on your platform. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. And, you know, let me just say this on the front. We say praise be to God, but I am, regardless of the hat, and I am an American. I am an American, born and raised in the United States of America. And basically and fundamentally, to be honest with you, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. I'm interested in a lot of different places in the world, but I don't think I can think of anywhere else, even with the COVID, where I would like to be other than the United States of America, be quite honest with you. So who is Imam Hatim Hamidullah? He is an American Muslim and happened to be an Imam. Imam means leader of a community, not just a leader of prayers, but a leader of community life for the Muslim community.
Okay.
That's who I am, basically.
Well, welcome. We are so happy to have you. Now we'll get right into this topic that I am so eager to learn about.
Okay.
Why is this topic, corrected stigmatized identity, is so important?
Well, you know, I was hoping that we would do some series of these, but I'm going to try and cover all of this and kind of put it in like a capsule form. You know how you can get a capsule form of your medicine and it's time released. So I'm going to try to do my best to, you know, give some vivid snapshots of the reason why this identity situation here needs to be corrected. It needs to be first identified, because a lot of times people, I would say people in general, have a stigmatized identity because, number one, we were not really told who we were when we were released from slavery here in the United States of America. Now, specifically, now we're talking about just the African-American ex-slaves. That's what we're talking about now. I want to give a vivid picture because this is like a universal kind of delivery, but I'm so happy to be on this session because this topic needs to be talked about and expanded upon. So it is very important to correct a stigmatized identity for people. In this case, I'm talking about descendants of Africa, ex-slaves. That's who I'm talking about now. But we're going to widen this situation because I don't want to pigeonhole the conversation to just African American, so-called African American, and Muslims and slaves and like that. But there is a stigmatized identity crisis. When we talk about identity crisis, I mean, that's a big problem. So, you ask the average African American, what is their name? And the average African American will tell you something like Williams, Johnson, Thompson, Rudy Overstreet, Tom under the bridge. You'll have situations like that where people tell you names, and this, and it's well documented that most of the African Americans, and I use that real carefully, African American, and you'll see why in just a few, and not too far into the distant future. And that is because, if you have a situation where you have a whole country full of generations that are members or linked to ex-slaves in the United States of America, it's going to cause an identity crisis because we were just stripped completely. Our lot came to the United States of America and were stripped for 6 or 7 generations of their name, their identity, their culture, and everything. So just look at this, and it didn't happen just like overnight. The United States exists now because it has been utilizing the labor and the sweat equity, the sweat of the darker races of people for hundreds of years. So you just, I was gonna say this later, but I'm gonna say this right now. Say for instance, you have, let me see, did you ever run track when you went to school? Did you go to school, Sister Mona? Were you in athletics where, you maybe ran track, you took, athletes or something like that. You may have had a track meet, or you may have seen a track meet. And you have these people, this is an example, I'll give you a good example. You have someone, you're getting ready to run a 100-yard dash, okay? You have your competition next to you. You look around and your competition, you haven't heard the gun go off or anything like that for starting, but the competition is already at 99 yards and you're still at the first yard of the race. So when the guy pulls the gun, the trigger, boom, the person only has to go 1 yard to finish the race. He's finished. You're still at the first yard. That's how it is comparing us to other folk. And I'm saying now, and this, I'm using this very carefully to white folks in these United States of America. For the most part, the average Caucasian person is in the front of the average African American or darker skinned person in their wealth, in their wherewithal. Why? Because the race was already won when the slaves were let go from slavery, you see. So people were already banking, they already had their bank and their money in order when we were released from slavery. And I say we because this is me, this is how I look, this is me, okay? So I wanted to say that because this is a crisis now, because we don't know who we are. And people will, when you look at the history of what they used to call us, and I want to share this with the audience. What did they used to call the darker races of people? Well, they used to be called, or we used to be called Afri, Afer, used to be called Ifir, used to be called colored, Nigra, and I'm not going to say the other N word, but we used to be called that too, and some still say that name. Others are called from that portion of the world, North Africa and different other parts of the east and west coast of Africa, brought over here. Moorish Israelites. We were also called Moorish Israelites, Afro-American, Black, African-American, and then they switched back to Black here lately. If you notice, when you follow those different names, and then it comes back to Black, and there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for the origin, our original name not really, mentioned here, and I would say, it's a reason for this. I'm Muslim. You can tell by the hat I wear, alhamdulillah, and the beard, little beard here. I'm Muslim, but I came from a background of diehard Christians. My mother was a diehard Christian. We had to learn Bible. We had to learn songs and Christian songs. This was I'm talking about many, many years ago, Imam Tariq. And so we have a situation where, we have a very diversified past. And when you look at the width and depth and width of the African Americans all over these United States, you don't have to think too hard to try to understand why you have so many mad Black men and Black women in the United States of America. We're upset. Okay, number one, when you don't know who you are, when you don't know where you came from, when you don't have enough money in the bank, because we didn't have generational wealth. Many of us did not have some of us did, but many of us, the great majority of us, did not have generational wealth passed down from one generation to another. So you have people, and we're not the only ones, but I'm specifically focusing on us now in this presentation. So one of the most popular suggestions for our names was coming from people who gave us this name, who conquered North Africa or parts of Africa many years, thousands of years ago now, okay? Sometimes in life, just like if you have a garage, you gotta back up to go forward. You can't just get in your car sometimes and just start going forward. You have to back up, then go where you're trying to go. And I wanted to do that in this presentation. I hope that it can be appreciated, because I think that if this is done, I think people will have a better idea and get their head around the reason why you have so many upset African Americans, and I'm using that word carefully, so many upset men and women in these United States. Reason why we have a group now that's coming up and that's making an imprint on this society politically, and from the position of protesting and all that, Black Lives Matter. You'll notice all of these things are they're not exact repeatals, but if you look at the United States in the 1960s, then you'll see that this is paralleling what happened in the Black community, so-called Black community, in the 60s, the Civil Rights Movement. So the Black Lives Matter movement, it's mimicking or it's resembling the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, and you'll have these upheavals in the society because of the unrest, because of the mistreatment, because of the lies, because of the weak ideas, because of the wrong understanding that has been given to all denominations of people, not just African American, not just Black. So if you would ask the average Caucasian, where is his origin? He'll probably give you 4 or 5 different places where he's from or she's from. Same way you ask a Chinese person, same thing. They'll give you different cultures, different dynasties, you know, Chinese dynasties that existed. And I'm saying all of this for a reason. We have to be able to trace our history as far back as we possibly can. And when we're able to do that, then we can have some kind of idea of the trick that has been pulled on humanity, not just African Americans, not just slaves that came from Africa. This trick has been pulled on humanity, and a very small percent has the knowledge of this trick. So if you can change a man's culture, in our case, you change his whole country and strip him or her of their name, their culture, their religion, and everything, because that's exactly what happened, then you can create or you can make a society of people that is absent-minded of their previous history. And that's what you see in the United States of America with the African-American people. Now, so I'm Muslim, so I wanted to go over these words very close, very, I would say, focused, in a focused way. And I asked this question, I'm asking the audience this question. We're not gonna open the mics or anything for answers right now. But where did this term Africa come from? I think that's an honest question.
Yeah.
You know, where did it come from? You know, who gave you that name African? Who gave you the name African American? Where did that come from? Why are you accepting every name that people put on you? If we don't know our names, seems to me there should be a group of people from among us, I'm talking about from African descent people in the United States, to come up with a term or a name that majority of us are comfortable with. Where did this term African American come from? Where did the term colored come from? Who gave you that? You see, yeah. I need to know. So we do the research, okay? And what happens is a lot of times we come up with another white man, a couple of brothers that we were named after. Africa, the country Africa was named after a Roman general that, you know, conquered a certain part of Africa and parts of Africa, some point toward Tunisia and different other places like that. A lot of people don't know this. I know this simply because there's research that's there, there's information that's available, but who wants to tell the truth about how man populated the earth? Who wants to know that truth? Who wants to bag up that far? Okay, so now what I want to do is, I don't have answers per se directly from myself. I am in touch with a book that gives me information, okay, that clarifies questions in my mind and in my heart. And this is what we do as Muslim believers in Allah, by whatever name people may call him good, call him by different names. We say that there is but one creator, one creation, okay, and one human creation, So let me share something with you, and I hope that your listening audience don't mind that I mentioned something directly from our book, our holy book, okay? So God says, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban. And that's where I want to stop at. And this is in Surah of the Quran, a chapter in the Quran that is reflecting who created us in the first place. And the term is Ya ayyuhan nasu, O perceptive people. We created you from a single pair, okay? So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is that he gives us this history, and man has the you know, I would say the tendency to go away from what is right because of their rationale, what we call sometimes dry rationale, that really doesn't make any sense. It's just an opinion that somebody has about this, that, or the other. So I want to read this all the way through, and I'm going to be sounding like I'm rushing because I want to get all of this in, and perhaps sometime in the future we can, you know, do something else and focus on these separately. Okay, so here is the picture of the creation of man, that he said, meaning Allah, we created you from a single pair. That's Adam and Hawa, a single pair. Most people in the world will point back and say, yeah, Adam was the first man. Okay, all right. So why do people deviate from the behavior of Adam? They go to the extreme activity. Why? Because that is a small theater that took place with him and his wife and his two sons, Habil and Qabil. And there was where a lot of the confusion came. Actually, it started in heaven, but we don't have time to go into that. Where Allah is saying, I created you from a pair. This is the point I want to make. And of male and female. He didn't create us from two males.
Yeah.
He didn't create us from two females. He created us from a pair, one male and one female. Allah mentions in the Quran, that's how first human being was created. Okay, so what was the purpose of the creation? And what did he do with those two? From those two, he made nations and tribes. It was obvious people were going to mate, they were going to have children, those children were going to have children. So the community spread all over the earth from those two. Common sense, no brainer, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so God says he made you into nations and tribes. So I want to make this point that the tribes, the different tribes, did not have different parents, origins, you see? So you would think that because people are in different parts of the world and that there were different tribes. This word for tribe, shu'uban, shu'aba, means a tribe. Mm-hmm. So all over the world, you had all of these different tribes. So just so happens in Africa, you have the relics or the, people have discovered most of the oldest bones, the oldest skeletal system or skeletal remains on the planet Earth. So most archaeologists have come to the conclusion that the first of the human beings resided in Africa. There's usually no, unless you get some kind of far-fetched mentality that comes in, but most archaeologists agree that the first human beings resided in Africa. So there were tribes in Africa that began to, make moves, if I could use that term. So, but the purpose of the creation was to put us in tribes that you may get to know each other. So the tribes would go out and then the tribes would discover each other again, not to go to war. That wasn't the purpose that God created the tribes. But unfortunately, many times, because the tribes did not have the knowledge of the very beginning, that they have the same daddy, the same mama, Adam and Hawa, same grandfather, great-grand, all of us have the same beginning. They began to war with one another. So God says, He created you tribes and families for you to get to know each other, that you may not despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of God is he who is most righteous of you. Now, I have to keep it, this delivery that I'm giving, this conversation that I'm having, to a pattern that goes back to the first man and the first woman, and the purpose of the first man and the first woman, and the purpose of God, Allah, putting us in tribes to get to know each other. And the best from among the tribes, according to what God says, the best in the tribe of the tribes and those in the tribes are those who are most righteous of you.
Okay.
So, yes, question.
Yeah, well, you have mentioned so many things, and we are getting into deep knowledge, and I appreciate that, and I hope the audience also appreciates
I hope so
as well. We had a brief discussion before, and I did tell you that I am always hesitant to use Black Americans. I'm hesitant to use African Americans, just because I disagree with it.
Yes.
And I see people all as spirits, not so much the color, because really there is no color. There are skin tones, and that's the beauty of the creation. But the society is forcing me to use those words despite the fact that I am not in agreement with it. Now, in your opinion, who are the Black and white people in your view?
Okay, that's a good question. And I can really respect your the statement that you just made, because as you can remember, and while I was giving my beginning the conversation here, I said that I was reluctant to say Black. You remember me saying that? I'm reluctant to say African American. I'm reluctant to say African. I'm reluctant to give in to all of these different tags that have been put on us, and some of us have put these tags on our own self. Others, one of my teachers, my main teacher as an imam, Imam Hatim Hamidullah rahimahullah, he said, be careful, because there's different messages in language. There's different messages in language. Quick example, because of the subtlety, the subtle message, people may be just putting themselves in a pigeonhole image for the world to look at and probably laugh at. And it may not say, so, oh, why would he be so picky or so picky about what he wants to say about calling? What's wrong with calling yourself African American? Well, I just happen to know that the word, the African it was not derived from Africa itself. You know that. Most of the people know that, but they just don't want to think about getting together and giving our own self a name that we can be pleased with as the darker races of people. So here you go. God talks about in the Quran that he created all of us from mud. And some translators translate it as smelly mud, just mud. Others translate it as black, stinky mud. But I think I didn't see the word black in the Arabiya, because I read it in Arabic and English and other languages. So I just want to say that this whole idea about black and white, it is the results of not having knowledge. This is part of the Bible. I know some of the Bible myself, spent a lot of time in the Bible as a youngster. So the Bible says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, you see. So if I don't know something, I should just say, I don't know that. It's another, I'm an imam, I teach Quran, Arabic all the time. But if somebody asks me a question, that I don't know, I'll say, I don't know, I need to do research on it. I don't have no hard time with that. But if a person claims that they know something, and they act like they claim, but the reality is they don't know, then that's an embarrassment on that person. That person, people shouldn't do that. Remember what Allah says, that the best ones among you are those who are the most pious, those who are the most God-fearing, God-reverent, the righteous from among you. Okay, so here you have a situation where this term black has a negative connotation around the world. Who did that? So if you slow the word down and just say it very slowly, I'm just saying black, Imam Tariq, just saying black. Be lack. Okay. Yeah. So that's the subtle message. People say, oh, he's just, no. That's real. You know, you are the one that is lacking behind everybody else on the planet. And that's one of the reasons. This is English. I haven't even gotten into other methods in which the blemishing of the image of the darker races of people. And you know, you've heard people say, they call it the angel cake. The angel cake is always the white one. The black, but the black cake is the darker chocolate. Even though people eat more chocolate cake than they do the other one, but the language is still there. The language is still there. Okay, so this term black, I can't accept it. This is just me. I can't accept this name because things like this is black.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Imam Tariq is dark skinned, but he's not this black.
I agree.
So if somebody wants to be called black, they should look like this. That's black. Okay. So what is happening in our society, or what has happened, is the society has been groomed, herd fashion, H-E-R-D, herd fashion, like cattle, like sheep, you know, and anything else that travels that goes in. So where are the knowledgeable people? Where are the conscious people that would say, wait a minute, let me back up. Let me look at this thing. Why are we being called minority? Okay. Are we being called minority because we were ex-slaves? Are we being called minority because we don't have, the wealth? Are we being called minority because we have lesser numbers? It can't be that we have lesser numbers. 75% of the population of the planet Earth is darker skin. I wouldn't say black, darker skin. So here, this term in the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, praise and peace be upon him, he kind of rationalized and gave people common sense about his position as a prophet, etc. Huwa kul, he said, Ana, meaning I, Basharun, I'm Bashar, Mithlukum, I'm a human being just like you.
Like you.
See, I'm a human being just like you. So he was leveraging his humanness with that, so that people would not make a god out of him, you see? And he told the people, don't make a god, don't make over my grave, and don't make a god over me like other people made over other prophets. They made gods out of the prophets, and with respect to all of them. So he said, Ana Basharun, I am a human being just like you. So that took the mystery out of being around Prophet Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him. Okay. So now let's just look at the colors. And I want to elaborate on this just a little, Sister Mona, because it's so simple that you would think that people should not be doing it now. Okay. For example, children, they have color blocks in their playpens when they're young. We used to have sand pits that we used to play in. People used to have red ball, yellow ball, black ball, yeah, and everyone would get a ball and they would just be so happy they had that color. Well, the society has been calibrated, not all of it, most of it has been calibrated to think that color is of the utmost importance. You see, the lighter the person is, the more opportunities this society gives the lighter person. It's just institutionalized now. It's in that. So I think we had a program this morning. One of the sisters in Miami, Sister Salahuddin, had a program called Colorization, the colorization of society, and how people play with colors, and how people are, they tend to look at the color of a person's skin and think, it's been going on for a long time, and think that, okay, this is the better person. I think I'll get this person here. So I've seen Indians who were, I'm not talking about American Indians, I'm talking about people who came from India. Yeah, some of them are close, and I'm not picking on them either, because we got some dark, but some of them are close to this black. But when they come and sign their immigration papers, they say white person. I'm Caucasian. Yeah, they put that on their immigration papers. I'm white, because they know that even if they just put down white, people will treat them better, and there are more opportunities will come to them because they classify themselves as wanting to be like the other person. So this is institutionalized. What do they call it? White privilege. But this person, black as ace of spades, you know? So all I'm saying is that, as Martin Luther King said, judge a person not by the color of his skin or her skin, but by the content of their character. And this is basically what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was saying. He said, I'm a human being just like you. Ana basharun mithlukum. The word bashar in Arabic, it means sensitive. And he wasn't talking about the skin being a certain tone. He was talking about the sensitivity of the skin, or the sensitivity of the humanness that God put into him by nature. And this is what is missing in society. The sensitivity to respect another human being has been taken out of the flow of this society, and much of this society and much of the world, because of these caste systems that have been institutionalized all over the planet. So I'm taking it back now to us in the United States of America. As Malcolm said, the United States of America can take a good lesson, can really learn something if they would just look at what Islam has to offer this society. People don't have to become Muslim, but they can take, like I take from Christianity. I take the positives from Christianity. I take the positives from Judaism. I take the positives from any orientation that will enhance myself as a human being. So here's the term that I think that people, Black Lives Matters and all of them, all of these new organizations and all of them. So this word insan in the Quran, the translation is human, the human being. Laqad khalaqnal insana. This is what God uses in the Quran to describe the human being. Laqad khalaqnal insana, that this person, in root word with it, and people will kind of push back on this, but I'm telling you, the research has been done. Anasa means a person that's perceptive, a human being, a perceptive human being. That's what we were created. We were created perceptive beings, okay, human. Okay. And because we were created perceptive beings, God told us that we are to be the vicegerents. This is in the Bible too. We are to be the custodians of the earth, the vicegerents of the earth. And we are here to clean it up and keep it clean. But you know, you always got that other theater that comes into play.
Yes.
That's, as I said, in heaven. It started in heaven. Okay. Can I keep talking, inshallah?
Well, yeah, you can keep talking, but I do have a question.
Go ahead, ask that question.
I am going to.
I'll get into my element and I won't stop. So go ahead.
I am going to be the devil advocates here.
Just say you're going to be the advocate. Don't say you're going to be the devil's advocate. Just
okay, well, I am going to
be the advocate.
All right. Okay. I've heard you said throughout your conversation. I've heard you said we were called.
Yes.
We used to.
Yes.
We did that, but we're talking about now. We,
yes,
as a person, as a citizen of this country, I've met so many successful. Okay, I will refer to them as African American. I've seen so many successful people.
Right.
They built a really, really meaningful wealth and all
nice
of that.
Portfolio.
So
yes.
You're talking about, and I hate to use this term, the white privilege.
Yes.
Why are these people, this group, have made it and they attained whatever they wanted to attain, and we are still referring to something that happened years ago, while we have the opportunity today to
yes.
make what we want to make out of ourselves? And there are so-called white people, there are so-called Black people that are struggling, and sometimes you see the struggle more in white population than and vice versa. Why are we still talking about something that happened a long time ago? And I saw someone, just to add to my statement, I saw someone just recently saying about Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Said that the minute they put Black before Lives Matter, it becomes automatically racist. So if we're talking about racism, these are the racists. He was talking about Black Lives Matter, or anyone that refers to him or herself as Black. So my question to you, obviously you can elaborate on this a bit, but my question to you, how do we begin to correct this stigmatized identity? How long will it take to correct it? Are we going to talk about it until the end of time?
You know what? I'm going to be quite honest with you. Yes, you're going to talk about it until the end of time, because every generation should know its history. You know, I'm not here just to talk about Black history or African American history or this, that, or the other. We're talking about the history of humanity. Okay, that was the catchword in all of the delivery I made up until this point. You know, it's not Black race, it's not white race, it's not brown race, it's not yellow race. What am I going to say, Imam Tariq? It's human race.
Yes.
Okay, it's human race. And so when you say, when are we going to put this issue to bed? When are we going to stop talking about this issue? We're gonna stop talking about this issue the moment we step, inshallah, our first steps into Jannah. That's when it's gonna stop.
Okay.
Okay, I'm telling you, because there will be confusion until the end of time. And there will always be those who are jahil, are ignorant. Always there's going to be a jahil group There's always going to be a kuffar group, a kafir group, people that just, you know, you can put truth right in front of them as a mirror and they'll turn away from it. You will always have that rejection of the truth. It's always going to happen. And that's the reason why Allah tells us that we will be told the truth of everything that we did in this world when we stand in the judgment before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm saying people are expecting for things to, okay, you can do this. Listen, how long have we been in the United States of America, I'm talking about African Americans, with this dilemma of slavery in these United States of America? And how long did it take the United States of America to get to this point in their evolutionary process as a bona fide, qualified global leader? Okay, how long did it take for them to get to this? Well, how long has this problem been existing? Well, it's not going to be solved overnight.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? So my humble suggestion to the listening audience, the reading audience, or whatever, my humble suggestion is to, if they believe in a God, if they believe in a God, they don't have to be Christian, Muslim, they don't have to be Muslim, whatever God or whatever theology you believe in, you should go to the language of that book, okay? If you go to the language of that book, you will see a golden thread of unity in scripture. It's there, it's there. So what people do, they say, okay, forget about what God said. I want to solve these problems myself. The society should solve these problems. Well, the society will not be able to solve its problems because society was created by God. It was created and evolved by God. And if the persons or people in that society have a scripture, they need to go back and study their book. So I'm not trying to promote, tell somebody you should be Muslim. This guy's dropping some stuff here. No, listen, forget me. Remember God and what God has said, okay? God has said and given us instructions in all of our books, in the Quran, in the Torah, and in the Injil, or in the Bible, okay? Yes, some of these books have been tampered with by man, but listen, there's enough truth in all of these books for us to find some words that will bring peace to us as a race of people. So it's not the black race, the white race, the yellow. No, it's the human race. Okay. Yeah. So now back to this Black Lives Matter, because anytime, and I had my notes here, I do this all of the time, so I don't need to always look at these. I was going to share some things with the listening audience, but listen, just because people are saying Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean that white lives don't matter. It doesn't mean that yellow lives don't matter. People from China, it don't mean that none of those people don't matter. It simply means that you need to draw your attention to the one that has been really ridiculed and bamboozled for all of these centuries, for so long, for so many generations. You don't have people that have been treated like African Americans in this country have been treated. You know, I'm a Texan. I'm from Texas. And in my childhood, I saw, I didn't see. I was living when they hung someone 3 blocks from my house, okay, in Texas. Okay.
Because they were what? What's the
because
reason?
They were niggers, because they were black, because they did something that people didn't like. They didn't want to take them through due process. The same way with George Floyd, So this whole idea about a knee being on the neck of our brother for over 8 minutes until he just died. This has been going on and our condolences go to the family.
Yes.
But this has been going on for centuries in these United States with no video recorder recording it. You understand what I'm saying? And it just so happens that, you know, for the powers that be, the video recorder has been you know, Malcolm says that the chicken come home to roost. Well, these video recorders have brought home a lot of situations that they didn't expect for people to see. They thought they were doing it in the dark and people had them recorded. So all I'm saying is just because people say, we say Black Lives Matter, that does not mean that white lives don't matter. You know, we have a concern for all human beings, okay? And we're not bottlenecking or pigeonholing our interests just for Black, but Black people, African-American people, by whatever I call it, these human darker races of people. I don't like that term. I told you I don't like the term. So you should pay attention and learn what has happened. I'm saying this and I want to share this with your audience. Can I share something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now these are people, I'm speaking kind of like in rapid fire, but I'm sharing enough, I would think, that would prick the minds of people that are interested. So most of these people that's on here, I'm looking at all these names, most of these are Muslims who know basically what I'm saying. But if they have friends and associates that don't have knowledge of our beginnings, now let me share this. Check this out, Sister Nona and others. Africans, and I'm going back now, we're using the term African now. Well, I was saying Black, but Africans. I say you had to back up to go forward. Please pay attention.
Yeah.
Africans have traveled back and forth, or they had traveled back and forth to the Americas thousands of years before Columbus sailed to America. And before the Vikings of Egypt went to North Africa, and social and cultural evidence still remains in the United States today. Why am I saying all of this? We're going to have to ourselves rewrite history. The history is crooked. The information has been distorted. So therefore, you have people in schools saying that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
Yes, I read the same thing. Yes.
2,500 years ago, African or original human beings from Africa conducted transoceanic travel 2,500 years ago. So you know that this thing is kind of like distorted. And Columbus discovered America in 92? How many years ago was that? That was about 600 years. We're talking about 2,500 years ago, Africans sailed around the Gulf of Mexico area, Texas, Florida, you know, back around California, et cetera, et cetera. So something is wrong here. You know, a good lawyer would listen to all of the evidence, they would gather all of the evidence, then he would make his statements. In this case, all of the information was not taken in, or it was not given, so that how can people write history books that only tell a distorted or partial report of the evidence that should have been taught to America. Now, just imagine, and I'm going to cut it short because you can ask the other questions if you like. It's no problem. Just imagine if Caucasians and Blacks and Hispanics were sitting in school, in grade school, 1 through 6, or 1 through 8, or whatever, and they were told that Africans traveled back and forth to North America thousands of years before Columbus discovered it. Now, this would kind of like reset the psyche of children of that particular generation so that they could grow up thinking and having a correct history. And they probably, maybe, only God knows, would respect Black people more because these Black people, so-called Black people, traveled to these United States. And in my research, the people that we call Indians in the United States of America, those are Africans. The
you
people
mean
that
the Indians, the original? Okay.
Yeah. So these were people that traveled to the United States thousands of years ago. Okay. And and we have evidence for this. Okay. And so here are some terms, because I want to back up. I just wanted to go back up a little bit because America is only 200 some years old. That's a baby. Okay. Here, the transatlantic traveling 2,500 years ago. And then you have terms, okay, that were utilized before Africa was named Africa. This is FYI information. FYI information. What are some of those terms? What was the name of that land before it was named Africa? That's a good question, yes or no? Yeah. Shouldn't somebody want to know that? Yeah, of course, please. They look at the map every time. So, you have Kush, they spell it K-U-S-H, Kush, and some spell it C-U-S-H, Kush. Then you have Abyssinia. Abyssinia, and the beginning of that is the beginning of the Arabic term, an Arabic term, which may be tied to another language as well. Abyssinia means father of the surroundings. Okay, Abyssinia, Kush, and then Kemet. These were terms that were used before English was ever discovered. So people would say, why you want to dig that deep? Why you want to go so far back in time like that? Because if you don't know your history, then you're going to be bound to repeat it if it was positive or negative, if you don't know your history. Okay. So my advice to the Black Lives Matter, my advice to all these different organizations, these young brothers and sisters that's going up, that's got all of this energy. They got all of this energy. Then what's going to happen after all of the protests to these organizations? Okay. My humble suggestion, and they're going to do what they want to do, because they should do what they want to do, because they're young, they're energetic, they're full of life, and they're getting things done, and I like it. That's the reason why I'm stepping back. Let them handle their business. Alhamdulillah, if they want some kind of advice, we will give it to them. If they don't, still, it's okay with me. But my humble suggestion is make sure moving forward, they do not include truth and falsehood in their movement. Make sure in going forward, because you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of good things going for yourself, make sure you don't mix truth with falsehood, with what has happened, like what has happened in the history books of these United States of America. So you have a good chance, and I'll tell you what one of my teachers told me, Elijah Muhammad. He said this: you have a good chance to go to heaven. You have a good chance to go to heaven. And if you would just empty out all of the corruption that has been put into your mind and into your heart that's false, and begin to fill your vehicle up, your body, your mind, your intelligence, with the truth of God, okay? And a lot of people don't know that the way to understand the progression of human life and its evolution, and I'm saying in these United States of America, the way to understand it is to back up and look at it. See, people are just living, they're going, they just moving, they just, you know what I'm saying? They just going, but they're not stopping and thinking about what has happened in these United States to make all of these people so mad at one time. That was the straw that broke the camel's back with our brother, Lord Floyd. That was the straw that broke. I mean, it got on the last nerve of the sensitivities of good people in this country. That's the reason why they're still protesting. We are still protesting because enough is enough. Enough is enough. So these laws have to be changed. So do you know what Jim Crow is? Jim Crow? Have you ever heard of Jim Crow?
I have.
You've heard of Jim Crow?
Yes.
Jim Crow laws were laws that were put in place to undo the positive moves that African descent people, Black people, have made in this country since after slavery, since after World War II or whatever. There were some progressive moves made that would level the playing field in politics and in the wealth of these United States of America. And as quiet as it is kept, many of the people that are over here now, doctors, engineers, and others, people that come from different countries, they are here because of the work and the striving of our folk during the civil rights movements. A lot of laws were passed that allowed and opened up doorways and channels to other countries, for other countries to come over here and, as they say, witness the American dream. And that's what many people are here. People are, you know, benefiting from the American dream. Well, one of the reasons is that there were already people here that look like me fighting for rights, just human rights, not Black rights, you know, not so much colored rights, but human rights, you know. So I wanted to give some names, and this is a Caucasian guy, okay? And this is being recorded, so people can probably go back and, you know, if you don't already have this information, if you have it, good, alhamdulillah. I just don't want to bore you, but I want to give information to people that are not aware of different names. You're probably aware of some of these, probably not some of these. Professor Thomas Lee from Canada. This is a Caucasian. Professor Thomas Lee is aware that Africans traveled to the United States of America 2,500 years ago, and there's archaeological evidence that points to this fact. There's a book called America BC, Before Christ, written by another Caucasian. His name is Dr. Barry Fell, Barryfell. He wrote a book on America before Christ. Okay, so all of these are eye-opening situations that some people know, some people don't. Probably this one people are more aware of, Dr. David Imhotep. The first Americans were Africans. This is a book. The first Americans were Africans. Dr. David Imhotep. Sheikh Anta Diop is another scholar. Ivan Van Sertima, they came before Columbus. Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, who said that he believes that the African-American descent ex-slaves have an Islamic memory gene in their genetic code. You see, Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, all of this knowledge is available, but I always ask when I'm giving my khutbah, who wants that much religion? So in this case, who wants this much history?
History.
You know, people say, you know, you tell a person, well, all you got to do is think. And some people say, well, I don't want to think. I don't want to think. I want things like they are. I want things to remain like they are. No. A person, what did the Bible say? The Injil? My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Yeah. You see? So if you allow yourself and your generation, I'm speaking in general now, to be dumbed down and pacified by opportunities for a job, a job, but your dignity in that job is not respected when you go to the break room. When you go to the break room, people at the water fountain or in the break room are talking under their breath, saying things about you because you're a darker race person. You don't need to be in that environment. You need to be in a place where you set your own standards, and we're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there where we own our own business. We have our own situations where we're comfortable in. We eat our own, what we call halal food. For us as Muslims, we eat halal food. We go to our own places and we're comfortable in that social environment. Okay, so all I'm saying is this, that if you don't know, just say, I didn't know that. And find information that fill those voids where there's question marks in our psyche. And I see that it's 7:07 now. I think we got 23 minutes.
We would like to open the floor to question, but I have one last question, if you can answer it, and then we'll open up the floor to others. And that is the movement, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Everyone out there right at this moment is associating this movement with violence, with destruction, with burning, with whatever. Do we really have to resort to that violence to solve this problem? I'd like to have your view and then open the floor to questions, please.
Okay. Now, you know, I don't know the core leadership of Black Lives Matter, but I have an idea. I sense that the leadership of Black Lives Matter is a group of very, very intelligent people that have good intentions. Okay, I'm going to say that again. I believe that it is a leadership group that have very, very good intentions, and they're well, well established, and they're professional. This is what I believe. That's number one. Now, a lot of times, you know, people, just like when people were, say, the bombing of the Twin Towers in New York.
Yes.
Okay. You already know that's not Islam.
Yep.
That was not Islam, and those individuals that did that, the Twin Towers, that was not Islam. They say, well, oh, that's you see how you Muslims are? You're terrorists. All of y'all are terrorists. No, just because a small group of people, you know, go and break in stores and burn, start fires and everything, that does not represent the core intention and the core idea, from my perspective, of Black Lives Matter. And I'm speaking without complete knowledge right now. But I think to a great degree, Black Lives Matter is a God-sent entity. And it's responding to a wrong that has been existing in the United States of America for years, for decades, for centuries. Okay, so those individuals that identify with destruction, trashing stores, breaking into places, starting fires and stuff like that, those individuals need to be locked up. Okay, and I don't believe that that is the main core of the Black Lives Matter group. I don't know what's happening here. So that's my take on that. That people should not mix up the intention with what's really happening, the objectives of the group, the plans of the group, things of this nature.
Well, I am going to remain quiet at this time, and I thank you so much for all your insightful comments and statement in history. I will definitely grab one of those books that you mentioned. I will open it to anyone that has questions. Please go ahead. And you can do it on chat as well.
I have a question.
Yes, please state your name. Assalamu alaikum. Hello.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. My name is Abdul Shakur.
I am a Caucasian Muslim, just, for the record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The reason I speak upon certain things is because, I tuned in kind of late, but from what I understand, the stigmas and everything that's been implanted in our society. I mean, what people have been conditioned to think, it's pretty disgusting. It's
Yeah.
everything that America is pushing right now. It seems to be the opposite of
Come out, go back in.
our moral fiber. For instance, they taught us lies of history. In the history books, you got Caucasians living in Egypt. You got they're promoting homosexuals and telling people that Muslims are terrorists.
Yeah.
They're promoting cigarettes and alcohol and stuff like that. But you're awkward if you want to cover yourself up if you're a female that's practicing Islam.
Right.
My question is, do you feel like the mental abuse that Americans have received is equal around the spectrum of different colors? Do you, like the African Americans, for lack of a better term, that's just one alley that we can go down of abuse that's been done to people.
Yeah.
Not to mention the so-called Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Indians, the only Indians I know are from India, but we're still calling these natives Indians. So, I mean, what do you think?
Narrow your question down to just a few words, and then we can probably focus in on it.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that with all the different abuses that is coming, right, from different groups,
Yes.
do you think the possibility of everyone uniting against this type of behavior is possible?
Okay, so this is an opinion as well, but I have to tell you the same answer that I, exchange that I gave to Sister Mona earlier, that there will be confusion in this world until the end of time. Okay, now the question, that's the reason why we as Muslims, we believe in the judgment. There's something gonna take place after this whole dynamic is over. This is a theater that we're in, and long story short, we have been given guidelines. Muslims have been given guidelines, Christians have been given guidelines, Jews have been given guidelines, and those guidelines come from the highest authority, which is God, which is Allah. Now, if we try to solve these political, racial problems on our own, by our opinion, you've heard opinions are like noses. Everybody has a nose, okay? All right, so everybody has an opinion, okay? So if I want to drill down on real answers to real world problems, we always say, and you've heard me say this, the names and the faces have changed in this generation, but the game is still the same. Satan still runs his game, okay? The devil still has his game. Righteous people still have their role. Evil people, weak people are always going to be susceptible to be seduced into this road or the other road. So we're all going to be judged by our scriptures, okay? Jews are going to be judged by their book. Muslims are going to be judged by their book. Christians are going to be judged by the authenticity that's left in the world of their book, okay? So we really have no excuse other than I just didn't know. So you asked the question, will we ever be able to solve all of these problems that's existing in the world? The answer is no. But does that mean that we should not make headway to get together? Because remember, as you say you weren't here at the very beginning, I was saying that what you already know is that our beginning was from the same mother and father, Adam and his mate, Hawa. We had the same mama and the same daddy. It's just that people in the world have been playing in the playpen of colors, okay? And they're stuck there. They're stuck there. So we're all essentially human beings. We're essentially human beings. We all have the same basic and fundamental skeletal makeup, biological makeup. All of these things are the same on the inside biologically, but we have been oriented herd fashion, like cattle, like sheep, like goat, to go in different directions without making the proper connections with ourselves as being simply different tribes from over. Someone is over across the river. We didn't know them. We crossed the river. God says, when you cross the river to get in contact with other tribes, you just learn to get to know them. Get to know them. This is the whole thing. So the biggest, the first sin, as you know, you can give me this answer because you're in my class. What is the first sin?
Oh, it was racism.
No.
The first sin?
The first sin was not created on the earth, or it didn't happen on earth. It happened in Jannah. Arrogance. People say money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. Arrogance is the root of all evil.
Yeah, that's right.
The word kibr in Arabic, this is the attitude that Iblis had against God, or against what he had decided to do. Huwa kul, he said, Ana istakbara, I'm better than he is. And this is all that's happening in this society. This group is saying, I'm better than him. The other group is saying, I'm better than that. The other group is saying, I'm better. It happens even in families. I'm better than she is. She's better than it. No. What did God say in the Quran about getting along with one another? Get to know one another, be patient with one another. Patience is a virtue. How many times we've heard this in our lives? People will hear the truth. You know, hearing the truth is one thing. Following it is a whole different dynamic. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Tariq. Just so that you know, my cultural background, I guess my parents are from Guyana, South America, kind of a Caribbean culture. I actually was born and raised in New York. So my question, and I'm going to do my best to sum it up. Sister Mona had mentioned before, you know, like, and I don't think her question was an underlining statement of kind of the forgive and forget, like, when will this all end? When are we going to put it to rest? But what understanding that I kind of can relate. So for example, me growing up in Flushing, Queens, or Queens, I think there's scientific proof that it's probably the most diverse location on the face of this planet.
Yes.
For one, I find it very interesting. Why I'm saying that is because I've had friends from multiple different cultures. I mean, Spanish, I mean, Latin America, every country you could think of, African American. Now, my question is I've been into many African American homes or Black homes. And this is just keeping it real. Some of the things that I've heard said, and again, this is not to call out a specific group of people or family or friends, but within the home, the culture and the way that actually the parents had talked to the children were actually more demeaning than what I've heard people of other races talk to them on like outside on the street. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because part of the issue, in my personal opinion, and I'm not saying this is not a blanket statement, but I feel like there has to be a certain level of where we need to continue to know our history. We need to know where we come from, but there also needs to be that balance of building that confidence, of letting that child know that, hey, when you walk out of the home, there's certain things that you need to be protective of. But I still feel that a large portion of that community are lacking the confidence of feeling that I can become that successful person, like Sister Mona said. And although this is coming from a non-African American, which I feel there's also that stigma of, you know, well, if you're not African American, you can't really give that advice to an African American. I think that we deal with that a lot, even within the Muslim community. So my question is, in summary, how does the African American community, in a sense, or the parents of children, kind of manage that delicate balance of knowing your history, knowing what people may, the way they might look at you, but also giving them that confidence and that ability that, well, I think the answer for a Muslim and non-Muslims are slightly different because of the lens that they look through life with. But overall, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, how do you present that to that generation coming up so that they know their history, they know where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, I can still become who I want to be?
Okay, so make it just a little bit shorter.
So specifically for within an African American household,
Yeah.
for a mom and dad
that
who have children,
yes.
how do you ingrain in them or teach them that you teach them the history, but not allow that history to hinder their confidence in going out there and becoming who they want to be? And why I say that too is because there's certain situations where, like, within the culture, within the community, let's say there's a child who wants to go and play a certain sport, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, if
Right.
for example, if a young African American wanted to skateboard, it was like, what are you skateboarding for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe he wanted to dress a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's like, you want to break out of a specific mold, but then, you know, you get the same treatment that you would get. Well, now you're not Black enough. Now you're trying to,
Yeah.
well, who do you think you are? Now you're
Yeah.
making money, you're trying to come up out of the hood.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a battle on both sides. And
Yeah.
that's why I feel like,
Right.
how do we address that?
Yeah, so it's a battle on both sides, you know, and I'm going back to the answer that I gave, and this is not a cop out, but I'm going back to the answer that I gave earlier. There will be confusion in this world, not just in the Black, in the African American community, in the African American family. If you would flip the script on just what you told me and go across the river, okay, in New York, to an Italian family, okay, then those individuals are having household problems as well, and probably maybe talking about people across the water. So if you would take this for an answer, that there will be confusion until the end of time, okay, and knowledge is of the utmost important for that particular family that you're talking about. I have to make the assessment because you gave me an example of a particular family, because all African, as you know, all African American families are not like that. All African American families don't function on that level. So there's different levels of function in different African Americans families, just like there's different levels of function from a sociological standpoint inside of the home in different other denominations. So I have to point that out because that was kind of like an isolated kind of picture that was put there, and I understand that because it happens. That's what happened. You have people in African American community call their mama by her first name. They're friend, hey Rita, can you give me some? Let me have some of that sandwich. Give me some of that burger. You know, and this is outright ignorance. Okay, for the most part, from my perspective. Okay, so what I'm saying is, you know, people are going to mimic what they see their peers do or their parents do or people in their association. And you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So, but I'm talking about from a leadership standpoint for the Black community, for the African American community, for the Afro community. From a leadership standpoint, those individuals that claim to, you know, have knowledge, have wisdom, have understanding, should put together educational forums, and I'm not talking about in universities only, colleges only, but I'm talking about community-wise, you know, that will teach people about this history that I'm sharing. Because if the people don't have dignity, if they don't know who they are, then their dignity as their dignity aspect is taken out of them. They don't have dignity because they don't know who they are. They don't have a knowledge of themselves. Their mind go back so far and they cut. There are some African Americans that are in these gangs in these cities, and you know this as well as I do, that they don't think that they're going to live to be 20, 22, 25 years old because of the gang activity. You know what I'm talking about. So it's an educational situation. And I have to tell you what Allah says. Allah says this, okay? This is not me talking. So Allah says, and this is not just for Black people, African-American people. He says, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مُغَيِّرًا نِعْمَةً أَنْعَمَهَا عَلَى قَوْمٍ. Allah will never, this word lamb in Arabic is the lamb of never. Means that if this doesn't happen, this is not going to happen. Okay, if this doesn't take place, this is not going to take place. So here it is in a capsule form from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from God in the Quran. And you've heard me give these talks, these lectures. It's the same principle in non-Muslim families. They may not get it in this language, but if they don't apply it in this way, the condition is going to remain. The condition is going to remain. And God says he will never change the grace or the condition which he has bestowed upon a people until hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, until they change what is in their soul. So these people that we're discussing, that you're discussing, and I'm talking about, they're not even, many of them, unfortunately, are not in touch with their own mind, not to mention their soul, you see? So that's the reason why we have to reach people through education, and perchance by reaching them through their intelligence, then their intelligence will become the real commander of their heart, the real commander of their soul. But I'm telling you, there's many people in the generational spans, or the generational groups, these generational groups that are going to have to live a life, live an adult life, and die. It's unfortunate I'm saying this, but that's what's going to happen. They're going to live their lives, become teenagers, become adults, and never come into any understanding to amount to much of anything, and they're going to die. That's going to happen over and over and over again until Allah himself decides to put leadership in front of that. Now, slavery was, as one person real close to me reminded me, slavery was permitted by God, okay? It was permitted by God. And slave masters were permitted to do whatever they did to our people for all of those years, okay? So, but what should we be thinking about in these homes that have no leadership and everybody is talking to each other in such cruel ways? Listen, that's a curse on that generation, okay? Because there has been a lot of time for many of the African-American people, Black people or whatever, has been enough time for many of us to have awakened and taken our place under the sun, so to speak, and I'm using, for lack of a better phrase, because of the time. But we're gonna have to lose a lot of these people, okay? And it is in the hands of Allah. No one is going to get in a focus group or bring us information to say, if you do this, then you all will automatically abracadabra come out of your city. It's not going to happen. So it had, just like we were bred to be Negroes and the other term of massa, we have to go the other way now in order to come up with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding upon these next few generations. And that's the reason why I applaud Black Lives Matter. I applaud all of these groups that are trying to raise up and be identifying with their essential dignity that God put into them in the very first place. Because quite honestly, Tariq, we were covered up okay, our souls were covered up, okay? No people, listen, no people will put through what we will put through. No people. And I'm not mad, I'm not upset or anything, but no people will put through what our people will put through for somebody to say, you need to get over it. You need to brush that under. No, all I'm saying is God says that he will never change the condition of a household. He will never change the condition of a group. He will never change the condition of a people until they change what is in their souls. Now that calls for some deep, deep introspection by the person or the people or the family that want to change their condition. If they don't do that deep introspection, that deep observation, that deep weighing, microscopic observation of their own condition, it's not going to happen. So that's the end of my presentation today on correcting the stigmatized identity and identity crisis, the struggle of so-called Black Muslims and Black people in the United States of America and the world. I'm going to end this like that. Assalamu alaikum. I had a good time. May Allah continue to bless all of us. I love this work. Allahu Akbar. Be it.
Thank you. Thank you. Salaam alaikum. Thank you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.